This is a video that pretty much everybody can probably relate to because most ethnic groups have a conflict with some other ethnic group. Every racial group, every ethnic group has histories, and in these histories, evil is done one side to the next. You know what I'm saying? The other side sometimes retaliates and things get really ugly. And the kids, the children, the subsequent generations after these crimes are committed inherit the beef, okay? And it's unfortunate because these new generations didn't do anything themselves, but sometimes they gotta suffer for the sins of the fathers, as they say, okay? In this particular case, I'm speaking to my own group in a conflict that we've had for over 500 years now, okay, with the nation of Turkey. And this video is in response to, in particular, one video, but really to a whole genre of videos that you're gonna see on YouTube. If you type in Greece and Turkey, you're gonna see a whole bunch of videos about the beef, okay? And in the comments, you're gonna see a lot of hate. A lot of hateful comments from Greeks and Turks going back at each other, you know what I'm saying, dissing each other, calling each other all kind of nasty names. And it gets ugly, all right? And this oftentimes takes place in the real world too. I'm talking about, you know, in the present day. Just last week, there was another skirmish between the air forces of the Turks and the Greeks because we feel like, oh, they're always flying into our airspace, so we gotta, you know, try and come at them, and then they come back at us, and these little miniature fights between the air forces take place in the Eastern Mediterranean. A lot of the people in Greece and Turkey want to patch things up and squash this and start getting along, all right? I'm not going to go through the entire history between our two countries because this video is really only addressing Greeks and Turks who already know. I made the last video about this in Greek because I was specifically addressing Greeks. I can't remember what I call it. I think it was like Γιατί πρέπει να ξεχάσουμε την Τουρκία. Why Greeks should forgive and you know, squash it with the Turks and move on. That was addressed mainly to Greeks. In this video, I want to speak more to Turks. That's why I'm making it in English because I don't speak Turkish, except to know the word offending. The Turks know it. Turks know what that means. There was one particular video that I think was released a couple months ago called Greece is Ready for Turkey. And on behalf of the Greeks, guys, on behalf of all rational Greeks, I just want to say the only thing we're ready for with the Turks is another loss. We're not ready, okay? We're not ready, and we're not trying to fight again because we know, anybody who looks at this objectively knows we would get our butts kicked by the Turks. We know that y'all would kick our butts back into the Mediterranean, all right? We would not win with you guys. Don't get butthurt about what I just said, okay? Mi thimonete mazimo, okay? Because you have to look at it, I mean, you just look at it objectively, militarily. We can't match up with their military. That's number one. And number two, a lot of you guys are going to say, well, that's because the Americans are going to back them, okay? In the history between Greece and Turkey, America always backs the Turks because the Turks have a strategic position in the Middle East, and America needs to maintain them as an ally in order to be able to do their thing in the Middle East, use their air bases, all that kind of stuff. And Turkey is a more important ally to America than Greece is. So they always take the side of the Turks, all right? Now, a lot of you guys are going to say, well, okay, so they would win because the United States would back them. The only thing the United States would do would be to keep them from completely annihilating us, okay? Our militaries, just the Greek military versus the Turkish military, they can't match up. That's a dream. I know you guys have fantasies, okay, of the 300, okay, the Battle of Thermopylae when 300 Greeks held off however many thousand Persians. That was back in the day when all we had was swords, okay? Bravery doesn't do any good against bombs and planes. I don't think that that's even something that we should be thinking about. And I mean Greece or Turkey, because Turkey would lose people, and nobody wants to lose anybody. We've lost enough people over the years. A lot of the Greeks that I grew up with were very anti-Turk. They would always tell me you can't trust the Turks. They called the Turks varvari, these kind of stereotypes about the Turks. I always kind of thought that it was all bullcrap. I was like, well, you know, people are just people. But a lot of the Greeks that I talked to growing up didn't see it that way. Now, a lot of people see it as something that the governments of the two countries are stirring up, and that between the people, you know what I'm saying, there could really be friendship. I think a lot of people see it like that. But there's still, especially some of the old timers, still got some resentments from back in the day, especially people from Cyprus, okay? For those of you guys, just real quick, for those of you guys who don't know, there's a conflict over that island because in 1974 there was a war, and the island currently is divided in two. All right, with the UN keeping peace between the two sides. So again, I said it in Greek on that other video, and I'm going to say it in English now. Any Greek who is Orthodox, any Orthodox Christian Greek, has to remember that, you know, this, as far as the resentments, as far as the hatreds, it's something you got to resolve. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about like spiritually. It's something spiritually you got to resolve, because in our religion, it's not a religion where the kingdom is of this world. That's not our religion. Our religion is love enemies, forgive unconditionally your enemies. Enemies. That's what it is. I mean, I don't have to say anything else. Now, as far as from the Turkish side, I'm not going to try to speak for the Turks because I'm not Turkish. You guys got to understand that for 400, in the case of Greece, almost 500 years in the case of the islands, you know, a lot of the people were enslaved, a lot of the people were killed in these like miniature genocidal massacres. This is some really bad stuff. Now, we don't hold you guys who are alive now accountable for that. We realize you guys didn't do that stuff. That was your ancestors. The reason why a lot of Greeks have resentments is because a lot of the Turks today want to cover it up. This is the thing that they're mad about, okay? And me personally, I don't care. I personally don't care. Like I told to the Greeks who are Orthodox, the Orthodox Christian Greeks, our forgiveness and our love of enemies is not conditional upon an apology. We don't need an apology. We're going to forgive you, and we're going to, you know, treat you like human beings anyways. But for the Greeks who are the nationalists, who worship the nation as their religion, they're not going to do that, okay? They need the apology. Okay, now I know that it would hurt your pride to give an apology, but I think just something formally acknowledging it, the fact that Turkey tries to cover up these genocides, like of the Armenians, you know what I'm saying, of what was done to the Assyrians, what was done in Nea Smyrni in Anatolia, trying to cover this stuff up and deny it and say it didn't happen, this adds salt to an open wound, guys, because everybody knows that it did happen. It would be like Germany not saying that anything happened to the Jews. You know what I'm saying? Hitler even himself said, he said, nobody's going to know about this because, after all, who knows about the Armenians? Who remembers the genocide of the Armenians? Referring to what the Turks did to Armenia. Because the Turks have covered it up. You guys have covered it up, and America has helped you cover it up. So I'm telling you guys that some type of formal apology, this would cost you nothing. And this would do a lot to heal the divide, okay? Because a lot of the nationalists, and I'm not a nationalist, but I'm saying a lot of the nationalists want the history to be known so that it doesn't happen again. Now, I don't think that even an apology would prevent something like that from happening again. I think that's a fantasy, but that's what they want, and it would cost nothing. Hollywood in America for a long time has wanted to make movies about stuff that the Ottoman Empire did. And the U.S. government has told Hollywood again and again, don't do it, because this is going to hurt our relationship with the Turks. I think, I'm just suggesting, that if the Turkish government were to give the okay to the U.S. government, yes, Hollywood, you can go ahead and make these movies, I think that would be a big gesture of goodwill, okay? Now, to the Greeks, do I think that we should push for an apology? No. Because the fact is, an apology is not going to concretely do anything. It's actually going to, for some people, probably stir up a lot of stuff again that this younger generation doesn't need to be dealing with. Can they really apologize for what their ancestors did? I mean, is that really an apology? Like, that's like if you say sorry to me for something your granddad did. I'm going to say, well, you ain't got to apologize. You didn't do nothing. That was your granddad, and he can't apologize because he's dead. So apologizing for something that happened back in the day doesn't even make sense. I mean, from a logical standpoint. With our two countries on friendly terms, working together, we could just accomplish a lot more if our two tourism offices work together. You know, if our militaries work together, we would be stronger together rather than having this beef between us. Because the fact is, we share a lot of history. I mean, we have a long history together. Even if it's a bad history, it's a shared history together. We lived side by side in the same land for hundreds of years. Okay, and you guys, whether Greeks want to admit it or not, you guys shaped our culture a lot. You know what I'm saying? You shaped our culture, our history. We shaped your culture, your history, for better or for worse. You know, we have a lot today in common. Now, the Greeks, what could we do? Number one, we got to stop the whining. Stop the whining, man. I'm talking to the nationalists now. All the flexing, all the woofing, all the whining about, oh, they did this, they did that, blah, blah, blah. Look, we did stuff to them too, man. Okay, and you guys are going to say, well, they did more. Look, Everybody's only responsible for their own actions, okay? When we stand in front of God, we got to answer for us, for ourselves, nobody else, okay? And so it doesn't matter how many things total they did to us in the past. What matters is how many people living in our countries today currently are responsible for doing something. And the fact is, I mean, from AOKA B to, you know, these different organizations that we've had, we've done a lot of bullcrap to them too. Okay, we've done a lot of stuff that we have to apologize to them for. We should actually apologize for Cyprus, because that's really, if you look at the events leading up to that, AOKA, Vita and all them, that's really our fault, guys. It's really our fault. We provoked them. AOKA B was killing off all the Turks. You know what I'm saying? They were riding through their neighborhoods doing drive-bys and terrorist bombings. Turkish people in Nicosia were going and living in caves in the mountains because they were hiding from Samson and his killers. Okay, so we got a lot of, you know, apologizing to do to them too. So we could do that and stop whining about the past. Stop asking them for this and that. Okay, stop saying that we're gonna fight them and all this stuff, all this woofing that's just blowing hot air. The second thing that we could do, and I'm only talking to the Greeks who do this, stop telling our kids that the Turks are bad people. Stop indoctrinating, stop poisoning our kids' minds, calling the Turks varvari, and, you know what I'm saying, telling them only the negative stuff, that, you know, all the Turks did this and they did that. When we had an empire, we did the same stuff. Alexandros, Omegas, and all the other, you know what I'm saying, leaders that we had, all these guys, they all did the same crap that the Turkish sultans did. Are we going to go and apologize to, you know what I'm saying, the Syrians and everybody in the Middle East and everybody in North Africa and the Egyptians and the Persians? Are we going to go and apologize to them for all the crap that we did? And who cares that it was farther back in the past? It still happened. And the fact is, the people that are alive today did not do those things. We're hypocrites if we want anything from them if we're not going to acknowledge what we did. You understand? Or what our ancestors did. Stop supporting politicians who keep this thing going. You know what I'm saying? Stop supporting politicians who use this issue to stir up anger. And you guys got to remember, politicians, they use this tactic where they get you mad and they like to say, you know what I'm saying, the Turks did this, the Turks did that, and bring this issue up again and again and again. And we got to stop, like, letting them pander to us like this, because it's not really helping us. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching.